Hi, I'm Mark Yaxley. Welcome back inside the vault. We have a very special guest here with us today. Former London Metropolitan detective, now private security consultant, Chris Goddard is here to talk to us about keeping your precious metals safe at home. A lot of you probably keep some gold and silver at your home or business. Not everybody wants to put it in secured storage, so Chris is going to provide us with some detailed tips and information on how to keep your assets safe. Chris, welcome to Inside the Vault. We're very happy to have you here with us. You've done a lot of things in your policing career before you went into private consulting. And can you tell our viewers or give them an idea about the types of cases you've worked on before?
Absolutely. I've worked on a wealth of investigations. I was a career detective. I think the pinnacle of my career was I worked for 5 years on a unit called the Flying Squad. This is an elite unit that deals with armed robberies and sophisticated commercial robberies. It deals with both after the fact investigations and before the fact in terms of covert surveillance, following, for want of a better word, the word I always use is baddies, following baddies around, watching them plan, watching them seek vulnerabilities leading up to the commission of an offence. So an interesting insight into sort of the mentality of a criminal, and we would take things from cradle to grave. So from the initial intelligence all the way through to conviction at court.
I wanted to start by asking you, you mentioned, you've followed criminals, you've profiled them, you've arrested them, you've interviewed them. Can you give us an idea when a criminal is picking a target to burglarize? What are the kinds of things that they're looking for? How are they planning this out?
I think we can take a broader scope first of all. Any criminal, given whatever their particular line of work, will be looking to exploit vulnerabilities, whatever that vulnerability is. Just to come away from a burglary, first of all, a large part of my duties was following cash in transit, the armoured car robbers around. And what we'd often find is they'd either be fairly ad hoc. They knew they wanted to do a robbery of a cash in transit van, but they hadn't got a geographical location in mind, they hadn't got a particular target in mind, that they would literally hunt around. And often we would watch them watching the procedures, and they would just be looking for something that they could exploit. So if you think about that and bring that to your home, what vulnerabilities have you got that could be exploited? Do you have a communal door that you sometimes leave open because the lock's sticky and it's fine, no one ever walks through here, it's such a pain opening the door, we'll just leave it wedged open, we'll leave it on the latch. Little small things like that, which would be a vulnerability that they could exploit.
Would it be safe to assume that they might also even watch you going to work every morning, knowing your schedule, or is it more ad hoc than that from your experience?
There's two different types of criminals. Well, there's probably wider, but let's really simplify this. There are those that will just exploit anything that comes to hand. If they see a vulnerability, they'll go for it. On the reverse side of that are those that are more, I don't like to give them credit, but you've got to accept some professionalism, and that they will look and they will assess routines. And again, will they find a vulnerability in your routine? So yeah, it's almost due diligence on their part to have an understanding of what they're about to do, how they can achieve it. They want to achieve this, they want a reward. So it's entirely appropriate for them to try and assess, to try and understand as much as they can so that they're effective, so that they achieve what they set out to do.
So then, in a case like that, where there is some pre-planning, what could a private person do to prevent or make it more difficult for a criminal to take advantage of those weaknesses or those vulnerabilities?
Let's concentrate on our houses, on our home. The way I would look at your security and to improve your security is very simple steps. Layers. So think of concentric circles away from your house. I think the first one is your social media. Is your social media open or is it private? What exactly are you inadvertently advertising? What are you showing to people? What items of wealth? Are you showing yourself you're regularly away from home? Are you revealing things that don't necessarily need to be revealed? Are you giving them a reason to be interested? Are you demonstrating that there's something that would be the reward in your property? So then you look at the boundary of your house. Are there places for them to hide? Are there places where they're concealed? Kicking down a door, and I know this because I've tried to kick down some doors. I often have to get a bigger boy to kick down the door. It takes time. It doesn't go down first time.
Right.
If you've given them a screen at the front of your house, be it a hedgerow, be it a wall, you're masking them from passers-by. You're affording them a little bit longer time to take that effort. So the front boundary, do you need a wall? Do you need something that totally obscures it? Can you keep on top of your hedgerow? Keep it trimmed so that there is that vantage point. However, on the sides and the rear, yeah, make it so it's difficult to climb. Make it so it's difficult to get through. Keep putting those obstacles in their way. You're not building a fortress because that will then impact on your own lifestyle and enjoying the environment yourself. Right. But just by simple steps, you know, I don't want them to be able to come over the side or the back, but equally I want passers-by and my neighbours to be able to see the front. So beyond that boundary, we actually get to the building itself, the actual sort of perimeter. How good are your locks? How good are your doors? Like I say, I've used a sledgehammer to go through a door, and it does get to the point where you have to put it down and take some deep breaths and go again. That's the absolute testament to good locks, good door. Right. You don't want a door that will go in easily. It's simple. Get some advice. Go to a locksmith. Get good locks. It will deter people. It will stop people.
So let's take that one step further. They've managed to penetrate the house. Okay. People aren't home. They're out at work having a night out with their friends. They're in the house. What are they thinking now? They're like, wow, I'm here. Yeah,
they're now on the stage. And regardless of pre-planning, regardless of what's led to that point, that heart's going. There's no two ways about it. They're not that cool. Speed is of essence. They don't know who might be arriving. It could be entirely unrelated to their activity, but there could be somebody arriving. Right. So they've got to be quick, they've got to be prompt. By the very nature of what they're doing, they don't want to be sitting there too long. So they'll be looking for the obvious things. Bedroom, bathroom, safes. Are things on open display? Are things readily available to go into the bag, go into pockets? Are you giving them the opportunity to literally do the supermarket sweep? Right. So again, even once you're inside, more layers. Can we conceal things? Can we hide things? Do things have to be readily available as things that we can move? So
they're not necessarily going down to the basement and into the boxes that say Christmas decorations. They're not taking the time to go and say, wow, what if this guy thought about hiding the stuff? Unless they had insider information, obviously.
There might be occasions when they are afforded a bit more time because they're assured that you're not there, that you're not likely to return. They're concealed by that big wall at the front, so they are afforded a bit more time, and they will look. You spoke then about insider information. Insider information in so much as someone has deliberately told them they've got this in their house and it's here. Right. Equally, there's loose lips, an entirely innocent conversation. I dealt with a firm of robbers who, whilst ad hoc in some respects, also went to some degree of planning, and they specialised in shops that did money exchange. Now there's a particular shop that took some precautions of when they got to a certain amount of money, they removed it from the till, removed it from the counter area, and concealed it in Tupperware boxes. Okay. Not my first choice, but not obvious. Right. Quite good. We don't know how it came out. Possibly, and I think it is entirely through innocent conversation, that flaw was revealed. And this particular little gang of criminals heard about it and presumed that there would be an adequate amount of money to make it worthwhile, make it viable for them once it was hidden. Right. And so when they came into the shop, armed with handguns, one of them ignored the till, ignored what I would consider the obvious areas, and went straight to where the Tupperware was. I don't think there was a sinister element of, it's there. Right. I think it was more a casual conversation, that vital bit of information getting out, and through networks and through conversations, it's eventually reached the wrong ears, and they've thought they'd exploit it. There is a happy ending to that. We were behind them when they went through the door. We arrested them at the getaway car. The Tupperware box they'd picked up was the dinner they'd actually miss the cash in their speed, in their haste. And it's kind of disappointing when you've worked on a surveillance job and you've dragged them out the car and they've stolen a curry and you're arresting someone for stealing a curry. Kind of ruins a little bit of the glamour.
But it brings up another good point I wanted to ask you about, going back to the house for a second. The use of decoys.
Yes.
It wasn't done on purpose in this case, but there was 2 Tupperware containers at least in that location, and they picked the wrong one. So would it be worthwhile maybe investing in some things that look expensive that maybe you got at IKEA or Walmart?
Absolutely. You're almost giving them the finishing line, aren't you? Here it is.
Right.
You can go now. You don't have to carry on searching. Well done, you've found it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wouldn't make it too obvious that it is the decoy.
Right.
I would give them a little bit of, so they can feel some credit that they've done some work to achieve this.
Right.
But I think a decoy is you're giving them the reward, you're giving them the reason to leave.
Okay.
So yeah.
In terms, we haven't spoken about it yet, it seems pretty obvious. A lot of people have home security systems.
Yes.
They've got a nice big badge. It's a sticker posted right on the front of the house. I've heard some people say that gives a criminal more information about the type of security system that it might be, or the vulnerabilities of that particular security system. And I've heard the other side. Obviously, you have to have a home security system. It's just another deterrent. What's your opinion on that?
I think you've raised it yourself. There are pros and cons. Personally, I would suggest it's a good thing. You are demonstrating that we are actively engaged in protecting our property. Mm-hmm. This is what we've got. This is what you've got to overcome. Go somewhere else. Mm-hmm. We are difficult. We are not worth your while. Look what we've got.
Right.
And that there's got to be a presumption on their part that that's monitored. That it's not just going to blare out into the street. That there is going to be a response, a reaction to that. I think it would, particularly for those that are opportunistic, that haven't done their homework, haven't done the research, I would think it's off-putting.
And this might sound silly, but again, I want to hear from your own experience. You've met these people, you have an understanding of their psychology. What about a dog? What about a mid to large dog? I know here, living in the Caribbean, that's a tactic that people use quite often. They get a dog. Unfortunately, they chain them up outside sometimes, but it might scare some people off. Absolutely.
I've got the smallest dog, which is fairly ridiculous. And he will alert me.
Right.
Sadly, he'll alert me to anything.
Right.
But he barks and he barks and he barks. He sounds a lot larger.
Right.
But he's also making a noise.
Right.
He might be a pain and annoy you while you're doing a search purely because he wants attention. He'll be bringing you toys. He's another lair. So yeah, I would suggest a barking dog is, again, I'm going to go somewhere else.
Right.
This is becoming increasingly difficult for me to achieve.
Attracting too much attention.
Absolutely. It's attracting attention. It's not helping me be quick.
Right.
I'm going to go somewhere else.
So Chris, coming back to precious metals, because a lot of our viewers do own gold and silver, when talking to investors who do store their assets at home, a lot of them say, I've got it under the bed, the old it's under the mattress story. Some of them put it in the freezer, in Tupperware and things like that, or a little bit of midnight gardening out back. If you personally had, this 1 kilo gold bar, which is pretty small, easily to hide, where would you store it in your home?
I think you can get creative, to be honest. We've all seen those Google lists that are weird and wonderful and quite imaginative. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's any end to that creativity. Take it away from where the obvious place would be. Mm-hmm. The mattress, that's that old saying, you've got a few bob under the mattress. Mm-hmm. Take it away from that. I'm aware occasionally when it's been inside mints, inside the freezer. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're talking about layers, you're not going to get many more layers than concealed in the freezer door, than within there. I would suggest just staying away from that obvious X marks the spot and being creative.
So in terms of X marks the spot, you might think a home safe would be a big X for a burglar. Up in the bedroom, maybe they find that in the closet. There's got to be something interesting in there. So I know you've done some work for security companies that distribute safes and things like that. What can you tell us about safes and maybe some just practical tips around owning a safe or not?
Absolutely. So I think we started that with, that's the X. That's the big X. It is a big X, but a big, secure, bolted to the floor safe not one that can be carried off, not one that two people could stumble off with themselves. Bolt it to the floor, make it big, make sure it's rated, get some advice, shop around. A safe it's the ultimate cupboard. It's not straightforward. As long as you're locking it, as long as you are taking those precautions, a door is only as good as if it's locked. If you're routinely leaving it open because you're in and out of it for whatever reason, and you just forget about it, before you leave, make sure it is locked.
Right.
But I would recommend a safe.
So
absolutely, fireproof, strong,
right,
sturdy. They're not kicking their way into that.
Right. And I've also, in speaking to investors who have unfortunately had home robberies, if they left it on the ground floor where the front door is, it was actually dragged out. They managed to tie it up to the back of a vehicle and drag it out. But if, let's say, you had it in the basement, on the second floor, again, it just removes one other possibility for the burglars.
Yeah, there's determination, and dragging it out. Yeah, that's some determination, and then there's impossible.
Right.
They're going to have to write that off.
Right.
They're not getting that out of the building.
Worst case scenario, the unthinkable happens. You're at home, you're sleeping, you hear a noise downstairs. Someone's in your house, maybe more than one person. Maybe they have a gun, maybe they don't. What do you do if you're confronted by a burglar in your own home?
It is the absolute worst case scenario, and it is fortunately very rare that a burglar or a team of burglars will take that approach. That's a significant step up from just entering a property. That's a new dimension. So very, very rare. I don't want people to think that that's something that happens frequently. It's very rare, but it could happen. Whatever you've done, their determination, their effort, their knowledge, they're inside. Your first has got to be calling the emergency services, calling the police, be it 911, 999 in the UK, calling the emergency services. If then you are confronted, there's no way of avoiding that confrontation. That confrontation happens. It might be deliberate on their part to get your compliance to achieve things, to open things, to point things out. You have got to comply with that. It's got to the point now where your safety is at risk. You're trying to reduce the risk every time, but your personal safety, that of your family, is now at risk. I would suggest compliance. Again, speeding it up. Not trying to be clever, not trying to be difficult. Get them out, get rid of them.
Because like you said, their hearts are racing. They might do something, even if they're not necessarily a violent person by nature.
Yeah.
They might do something in the moment that's...
Absolutely. It's going to be a strange situation for everybody. Having arrested armed robbers, some of whom were typical villains, the full sort of, if you had to draw a villain, you would draw them. Their heart's still racing. It is a big thing to do. I don't care who you are. You are in that extra dimension now. Your heart is racing, your adrenaline's going, there's effects of adrenaline. Comply. Keep yourself safe.
Right.
Do what they want, get rid of them. They don't want to dwell there any longer than they need to.
Right.
Nobody in that scenario wants that to last very long.
Right.
Get rid of them. Simple as that.
Good advice, Chris. Thanks so much for joining us inside the vault. Best of luck with your security consulting business. I know you do well.
Thanks very much.
Thanks for being with us today, and we look forward to seeing you again on the next episode of Inside the Vault.